Today I'm taking you guys through the best controller settings for Warzone 2 right now, covering all of the in-game settings, how to update the firmware on your device, as well as how to overclock your controller to ensure we have zero input latency. Before we jump into it, today's video is kindly sponsored by Opera GX. You see, we all love to play FPSs on our gaming PCs and achieve that buttery smooth performance in FPS. But to make sure we never hinder that performance, we need an internet browser that's built for gamers to help us inside and outside of game. One of the biggest features of the Opera GX browser is GX Control, which enables you to enhance the performance of your PC when gaming with your browsers open. Perfect for when you want to keep a bunch of tabs open and not lose them, but you don't want to hurt your performance in games. GX Control enables the user to limit the amount of CPU or RAM being used by the browser. And it also comes with a network limiter, so you can limit the network bandwidth used by Opera GX to gain performance in games and streams. All it takes is a quick look at your task manager to see that Opera GX uses way less resource with GX Control than Google Chrome. Opera GX also offers a ton of customization through GX mods. Want to theme your whole browser around your favorite game? It's easy. Pick one of many mods already added to the browser or create a completely new one which will suit you the most. Custom sounds, backgrounds, and shaders. Just give this a listen. What's also truly awesome is the seamless Discord and Twitch integration. You can stay connected with your team, log into your Discord account, and communicate with your squad during your games. And you never have to miss your favorite streamer going live either, because just by logging into your Twitch account from the sidebar enables you to receive notifications when a streamer you follow goes live. And lastly, the GX Corner homepage allows you to stay up to date with free games, the best deals, the newest releases, and breaking gaming news all in one easy, accessible place. You can easily switch between platforms and see upcoming games, as well as gain easy access to all of your gaming store pages. Honestly, if you're still using any other browser right now, get rid of it, download Opera GX using my link in the description, and completely level up your internet browsing experience as a gamer on PC. So the first very important step outside of game, as I mentioned, is that firmware update for your controller. I'm running with a DualSense PS5 controller. This is just a stock one, not third party, doesn't have any paddles or anything on the back. There'll be a link in the description below to go and download the DualSense or PS5 controller firmware updating tool. You just run that with your controller plugged in. It will detect your controllers there, do the update, and get it up to the latest version. If you're running older PS4 hardware or something like that, or an Xbox controller, they'll have their own individual processes. Just go on Google, search how to update firmware on whatever controller you've got, and you should find your answers there. Just make sure you do it first. Next step is going to be overclocking your controller, which is very exciting. Now, overclocking your controller in reality is actually all to do with raising the polling rate of the device. Polling rate is simply how many signals per second we send from the controller to the computer, and we'll be raising that up, which lowers the input lag. There'll be another link in the description below to download the tool to do our overclocking. It's called HIDUSBF. When you're at this GitHub page, click on code and click download zip. You'll need to go and extract that downloaded zip to any location, and within there you'll find two more zips. This USB-F zip is the one we care about. We don't care about this N zip. We want to right click this one, use whatever extracting tool once again to extract the files from within there, and you'll have a driver folder which will appear. Open that one up. Open up setup exe, and then you'll actually see the HIDUSBF application. Come up to the drop down next to devices. We want to change it from mice to all, so we can see all of our USB devices connected to our computer. You likely won't have as many as I have, but the one we're looking for is the one which says something to do with wireless controller. It might talk about audio or something like that. Doesn't matter, just the one that says wireless controller. That's the one that you know is your wired up controller. You then need to follow these steps very carefully. Click on the wireless controller child name entry, ensure that default is selected down here, and simply click install service. Now, for some people, it won't look like anything's happened. For some of you guys, it will come up with a thing asking you to confirm. It will be like a Windows pop-up. I don't have that come up, but if it does, just click yes. Then you need to click down from default and select whatever the highest option you have here. For a lot of people who aren't running DualSense PS5 controllers, you might only see 1,000 as your max. Just select that if that's the highest. But if you are running with a PS5 controller, we can go all the way up to 8,000 polling rate. So click on that, then click install service again. Once again, you might get the pop-up or you might not. And then the final time, we need to click on filter on device, the tick box, and then click install service again. If you've done this all correctly, you should see USB composite device, filter, yes, rate 1000, B interval 1, okay? To confirm that this is all set itself in stone, take your controller, unplug it from the USB, and you'll see it will disappear from the list, and then re-plug it in, and we should see it maintains the values we just gave it. Once again, yes, 8001. That's the overclock locked in. You can then simply close down HIDUSB and you'll have that 0 input latency on your controller. So now that we've done our firmware update and our controller is nicely overclocked, we can look at the in-game settings. So let's head up to our in-game settings up here, go to controller, and first of all, make sure that aiming input device is set to controller here. I'm guessing if you're a controller only player, it will be, but if you're someone who likes to switch between mouse and keyboard and controller, you need to make sure this is set here, otherwise it just won't work in game. First thing we're gonna do is edit our button layout. Come down to Warzone/DMZ flip triggers button, and we're going to turn this on. What this will do is you'll see up here it's changed from default to default flipped. The reason we do this is that we want our shoot input to be on a button, not a trigger. A trigger can exist in basically infinite states. You know, it can be fully disengaged, it can be fully engaged, it can be halfway. At what point when you're pulling it are you actually starting shooting? We don't want to leave it up to chance. Instead, we put it on a button where you are either not shooting or you are shooting. That is far more defined. It's going to lead to far snappier shooting when you decide to start shooting an enemy. Same thing goes for the left side as well. We will now be aiming using L1 rather than L2. So once again, that's on a button. So we get far snappier aiming, far snappier shooting, an overall better experience. What I then highly recommend is you change your button layout preset. The default layout doesn't really play into allowing you to get really good control over how your character moves. So the bare minimum I would do here is change from default to tactical. All this is going to do is swap over 2 of the controls on your controller, and they are the melee button and the change stance or crouch or dive button, which will all have shared inputs. What this does is it consolidates most of our movement into just the sticks. If I want to go and crouch or slide or dive now, I don't need to take my right thumb off of the stick to go and press the circle button. I can keep it on there, and then if I need to melee, which I don't do too much, you only do it when maybe someone's down on the floor, I can then go over and start tapping that button. But all the movement is contained within just the sticks. If you're enjoying this video and want to see more educational and entertainment content from me, then please do consider subscribing down below. It only takes 1 click and it really helps out the channel. So we're now done with the button layout. You can move back 1 menu. Bumper ping, leave this to off. Stick layout preset, leave that as default so that you move with your left stick and you look around with your right stick, unless you really want to go and change this, which can be personal preference, but I wouldn't recommend it. Controller vibration, I would highly recommend that you turn this off. In general, controller vibration is just a distraction. Some people have grown up playing games where controller vibration was forced on, and so they might like it, but most of the pro players or the good Warzone players turn this off. If you have the PS5 controller with the haptic feedback triggers, then you will see the option for full haptics here. However, I would recommend you once again turn this off. It does actually make it so that pulling your triggers requires a bit more effort and don't feel as smooth to make it feel more realistic. It's great for single player games, but for a multiplayer competitive experience, definitely something we don't want to use. And now we're at the most debated topic, stick sensitivity. I'm going to say the same thing for controller sensitivity that I always say for mouse sensitivity, and that is that it is mostly personal preference. The main thing is that you need to build up muscle memory. So you need to pick a sensitivity. You can pick it based on your favorite player. Find something that just sort of feels decently good when you start, and then go and play 20 games with it. You know, go and shoot bots, go and play multiplayer, go do whatever you need to do to get that muscle memory built in, and then make the decision on whether or not you need to move this up and down. Don't go changing this every game. You won't build up any muscle memory and you'll end up terrible at the game. I would say 6 to 10 is a good starting point for both horizontal and vertical stick sensitivity. ADS sensitivity multiplier, most pro players will turn this down from the default of 1. It just allows you to fine tune your aim a little bit more when you're ADS'd. It always feels like when you ADS in this game and it's set to 1, it just feels way quicker, it feels harder to control. So 0.8, 0.85, with that lower ADS sensitivity multiplier and the aim assist on top, you really can start beaming enemies at long range. The sensitivity multiplier drop down, I don't touch any of that, so I would leave that at default. Same thing with vertical aim axis, leave all these at default. Now in the gameplay section, aim down sight behavior, you want this set to hold, which it is by default. There's no reason to be using toggle. It basically means you have to put in an extra input every time you want to aim in and aim out, so not a good setting. Change zoom shared input, I leave this at default, where you can change your zoom level by pressing pressing whatever your sprint or tactical sprint button is. Automatic sprint, this is a bit of a debated topic. I would say that if you are newer to the game, you're someone who is probably a bit of a lower level, then just leave this at off. It's going to allow you to walk around a bit more, you know, play that slower pace game, especially when you're in buildings and maybe you want to play a little bit more ratty, which is fine, by the way, if you're newer to the game. But as soon as you start getting a bit faster pace, you want to really compete at the higher levels, automatic tac sprint is awesome. It's going to mean that as soon as you press forward on your left stick, you are full tactical sprinting. You do not need to continuously jam in that left stick, double tapping, getting the tac sprints going. You're just always running at that full pace. Equipment behavior, just leave that at default. Weapon mount activation, I would leave that at default as well. And then interact reload behavior, really important one. Make sure you have this set to prioritize interact. By setting this to prioritize interact, it will mean that when you are looking at something on the floor that you want to pick up and you tap the button, it will pick up the item. When you are in a situation where there is nothing to pick up, tapping the button will just reload your gun. So it will always basically give you the thing you want to do by pressing the button in the situation you are in. And then armor plate behavior, definitely put this to apply all. Ever since season 2, I think it was, where they added in the full tactical sprint, putting on plates, and you can just zoom around the map, you can now just click that button once, you start putting on plates, and then you can just focus on outmaneuvering your opponent, getting behind cover, and those armor plates will fill up. You don't need to keep pressing the button. Now we're looking at the advanced tab. Target aim assist is a no-brainer. Make sure this is on. This is the reason why you're using a controller. If you turn this off, you will not be able to play the game. Aim assist type. When the game first came out, a lot of people were running the Black Ops aim assist type because for whatever reason, the traditional aim slowdown used in Black Ops games was just running insane in this game. It made the controller aim assist even crazier than it currently is. However, that's been nerfed. It doesn't really work as well now, so everyone is back to running default. Then aim response curve type. This is all to do with how fast does your character turn dependent on how far you've moved the right stick away from the center. You'll see a ton of pro players running different settings here, and mostly that's to do with the muscle memory that they've built up, potentially from older COD games where we didn't have so many settings. Currently, I would recommend that you give dynamic a shot. It doesn't really explain on the right there what it's actually doing, but it means that when you move the stick only slightly away from the center, you get really fine, slow aim and movement, which means that whilst you're ADSing and you're aiming potentially at something far away, you get those fine aim adjustments, which allow you to land your shots a lot easier. Then when you move your stick all the way out much further from the center, you get back to that really quick turn rate. You know, typically if you're moving your stick all the way to the side, you're wanting to turn quick, and dynamic allows for both. Fine-tuned aim when you're moving it slightly, and quick aim when you're moving it all the way to the edge. ADS sense multiplier focus, leave this at default. ADS sensitivity transition timing, make sure this is set to instant so that you get that change in ADS sensitivity as soon as you press the ADS button. Custom sensitivity per scope, you can turn this on and go and play around with some of your higher zooms if you want to make your snipers feel a little bit different in terms of aiming, but I personally don't see the point. I think they feel pretty good by default at off. And then we have input dead zones. This will set how far you need to move your left and your right stick for an input to actually be recognized by the game. So a higher dead zone means you need to move the stick further. This is basically built in the game mostly for controllers that have aged a bit and potentially have what's called stick drift, which is where, you know, you're not touching anything on your controller and yet your guy's slowly moving in game or slowly turning because your sticks are a little bit dodgy. The simple one here are the left and right stick max. Just max them all out. This means that we can push our sticks all the way to the edge and get the full effect, and we're not limiting ourselves down to a smaller circle or smaller radius in our sticks. For your minimum values of the left and right stick, as well as the triggers, I would recommend you drop into a Warzone game, go somewhere safe where no one's going to kill you while you're testing, put these to the lowest values to start off with. You'll likely see you have some of that stick drift, you might be turning slightly, you might be moving slightly. You just want to go in, slowly turn these up, check your game, check if it's stopped the movement, and at that point where you find you don't have any movement in game anymore, you've found what your minimum dead zones need to be. For me, it was 0.11 on both of these and 0.04 on my triggers. Controller orientation, just leave this at default. And then we have gyro aiming. Now, I'm not going to touch gyro aiming in this video, but it is a very interesting thing that we might see more of potentially in future years to come. It's all about how it can use the orientation of our controller and how we can move it, you know, left and right, like a Nintendo Wii controller, to actually affect our aim. We can aim up, we can aim down. You can do some really fine-tuned aiming. There are some people who are trying to use this and are getting good results, but currently it's not well understood enough, and we should just leave it at default, which is all off. Then we move on to movement behaviors. Auto move forward, definitely don't want this on. Tactical sprint behavior, I'm running auto tac sprints. This doesn't do anything for me, but you can set here what actually enables your tactical sprint, however you would like it. It's double tap by default. Grounded mantle on controller, I like having this on because I just feel like my movement's a bit quicker. When I play on keyboard and mouse, I sometimes turn this off, so it just requires an extra input, a bit more control to jump over objects, but on controller, leave it on. Airborne automatic mantle, leave it at partial. Automatic ground mantle, definitely turn this off. Invert, slide, and dive behavior. Definitely turn this to inverted over standard. At standard, you tap the crouch button to slide and you hold the button to dive. Sliding in Warzone 2 sucks. They've tried to improve it a bit, but it still sucks. And diving is the main movement mechanic that you want to prioritize. So you want to set this to inverted, so we only need to quickly tap the button to get a quick dive, to jump out of the gunfire, to jump off of a cliff and escape from an opponent. Inverted is a godly setting. Plunging underwater, leave it at movement. Parachute auto deploy, definitely turn off so that we can get as near to the ground as possible before deploying our chute. Get down, get your loot early, and win those early gunfights. Sprinting door bash, leave this on. Ledge hang mantle behavior, mantle only. Combat behaviors, off, off, on, short, on, off. All are just defaults. And vehicle behaviors, as well as overlay behaviors, I leave all these default too. So now that you've got your controller running at its best, you need to make sure the game is running at its best. Highest FPS, lowest input latency, best crisp visuals. If you want all that, then go and watch this video next, where I cover through all of the best Season 3 graphic settings for Warzone 2 and Modern Warfare 2.